Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Close Up. We are in the new year now, and that means it is crunch time for the New Hampshire primary. But don't tell that to Ohio Governor John Kasich. He thinks it's been crunch time ever since he got in this race, and he's been very busy. Good to see you, sir. First guest this morning. Yeah, I remember that back in July. I said, do you feel like it's starting to get serious now? And you're like, I've always been serious about this.
You got to work hard here. I mean, well, look, it's all on the ground. I mean, you got to meet people. I tell people out of state, I said, I met 1.2 million people in New Hampshire twice, so I only have 2 more times to meet them. And that's almost literally how it works. So we just, we're going to wrap up close to 50 town halls. I mean, we'll be at about 50 as we turn into the new year. And we just got a long way to go. I said we're going to do 100, even if I have to stay after the primary.
Sure. How do you feel you need to do in the New Hampshire primary? Because a lot of people are looking at this contest as being the make or break for
I need to be a story. I need to be a story coming out here. And one of the latest poll that's come out put me in third, about 1 point out of second. And I just need to be a story. And if that can happen, then maybe people can hear. See, I think right now, people just have a hard time believing anything that comes out of anybody who's an elected official's mouth. They think the system is rigged and they don't get a fair shake. And what I need to be able to do is let them hear what I've done throughout my career, the accomplishments with jobs and wage growth and things like that. And if I can be heard, then I think, I'm going to do really well and probably will be president. But I got to be heard. And New Hampshire gives me the chance for the rest of the country to hear me.
How do you rise above the noise? I mean, all the candidates are facing the same challenge, rise above the noise that's created by Donald Trump. You point to the fact that a lot of people are out there just frustrated, don't believe what elected officials have to say. And some believe that that's why Donald Trump is doing so well. And he can say anything. I mean, first, what do you make of I mean,
Josh,
is it real?
Josh, I mean, let's forget about me and let's just talk about, about life. If you're insulting women and you're attacking every group, basically on the face of the earth, I just don't think America's to the point where people want to go in and vote for somebody who's that much of a divider. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. I think I just don't buy it. That's not the way that people are. I think there's a lot of loud, there's a lot of noise. Maybe people are kind of out on a date, in a manner of speaking. But when the time comes to ask somebody to get married, I don't think that's where they're going to go. I just can't believe it. And so if I just said a quarter of the things that he said, I'd be run back to Ohio, and the people in Ohio would be furious with me. So I've been around long enough to know that at the end, I think people settle down and they cast a vote based on what is in their best interest and the interest of their children. Now, here's the thing, though, Josh. If they don't believe that you're real, if they don't believe you're a reformer, if they don't believe that you will give them a voice, then they're not going to vote for you, because that's where we are right now. People in politics, a lot of times they say, well, it's terrible that he has a record, because if you have a record, then people can point to stuff. I want them to look at my record. Sure. I want people to realize that special interests, are not the ones that call the tune for me. And the record, both in Congress and as governor, I mean, our wages are up, our employment is up, we've left no one behind, the disabled can be integrated. If you're mentally ill or drug addicted, you got a chance to get on your feet. But it can't seem right now to get through the roar of all these things that float around out there.
And when you talk about your record, your resume certainly qualifies you to be president of the United States. And a lot of you point to the record in Ohio with the economy there going from a massive deficit into a surplus.
Well, not only that, look, we were down 350,000 jobs. Now we're up 385,000 jobs. Our credit is rock solid. Our pensions are secure. We're running a $2 billion surplus. And when I was in Washington, I was, like the last person standing there with Senator Domenici to carve out a balanced budget with surpluses and job growth. And our wages, by the way, in Ohio are growing faster than the national average. And no one's left behind. That's why, I was able to be reelected. And secondly, why the opinion polls at this point remain high, although, that's always subject to the weather.
Sure, and we'll see what the poll says on February 9th, because that's the most important one, obviously. Donald Trump, he's a critic of yours when you talk about the economy, saying, oh, you know what, he's just lucky because of the fracking issue in Ohio. He didn't do anything special.
Well, the fracking industry has not really propelled our recovery. We like it. But of the 385,000 jobs, the number of jobs created in fracking on wellheads is really relatively small. What we hope is going to happen, and where the real jobs are, is on the downstream, Josh. If you can take the natural gas that's being produced and you can crack it into things like plastics, that's where the jobs are. But we're still a long way from that. But the boom has not been like it was in North Dakota. It's been, maybe 20,000 jobs out of 385,000. What's happened in Ohio is we've become diversified. We've got the cloud computing with Amazon. We've got Chinese investments. We have investments coming back from Germany. Why? Look, if you are a job creator, we're not going to beat you over the head with regulations. We're not going to tax you, or we don't, no income tax for small business in Ohio. We have balanced budgets, so we're not going to sneak up and clobber you over the head. Job creators, not only in my state but in the country, they want certainty. If they can't predict the future, they will do nothing. They'll sit on their wallets. And so certainty in America, get on top of regulations, reduce the corporate taxes, reduce the personal taxes, balance the budget. All of those things send a message. It's safe to go back in the water. Remember the old Jaws,
Sure.
Is it safe to go back? Then businesses will feel that it is safe for them to invest, and something isn't going to sneak up, clobber them over the head, and send their company into a tailspin. That's what we need in America. And that includes things like Obamacare, which hangs over their head.
Sure. Talk about safety. Let's take that into security, national security. During the debates, you're asked a lot about the situation in Syria, regime change, things along these lines. You get 30 seconds to respond and talk about what your philosophy and your approach would be. Let's let you breathe a little bit more, drill down a little bit deeper. As president, how would you approach the situation with Assad in Syria and dealing with ISIS?
Well, with ISIS, I've been saying now since February, we really need to go on the ground and in the air, but not alone. I remember back when we had the first Gulf War and the Arabs and the West cooperated to push Saddam out of Kuwait. It was interesting because the first President Bush did not drive all the way to Baghdad, and people said, well, he should have finished the job. Well, I think he was smart enough to know that once he went to Baghdad, he would unleash great chaos in that country. But the point is that we drove Saddam out, and it's the same coalition that has to destroy ISIS. And in regard to Assad, in my opinion, support the rebels. But I don't want to be in the middle of a civil war. It's sort of like being in the middle of a civil war in Iraq. It doesn't work. So Assad has to go, but we can support the opposition to him without involving ourselves in a civil war, while at the same time we destroy ISIS. We need to, because they are a threat to our way of life. And then we need better intelligence worldwide, and we need to make sure we have good intelligence at home.
So for our purposes and our safety and perhaps global security, are we better off leaving Assad where he is and keeping him contained?
No, I think, the Saudis have agreed that they would settle it down there. And they've agreed once Assad is gone that they'll be in the middle of managing it. We don't want to be in the middle of managing it, because then we're in the middle of a civil war. When you're in the middle of a civil war, it never works out. I've seen it all of my career. I spent 18 years on the Defense Committee with some of the smartest defense minds in the world. And you learn a lot by being engaged and being involved. But we don't need to be in the middle of it. He has to go, and he has to go because it's a link between Iran, Russia, and what Iran wants to do is they want to take this radical Shia element and spread it all across the Middle East, and we cannot allow that to happen. It doesn't need to happen.
All right, so you 46 town halls, you're 50 town halls. Anyway, you've done a bunch. What are you hearing most?
Well, people want to say, our seniors don't want to lose their Social Security. There's no reason that they should, although our wealthiest seniors are going to get fewer benefits if we're going to save the system. That's why it has to be bipartisan, so that you don't have one party sniping at the other. But people who are at the lower income level, and we haven't set those numbers yet, but at a lower income level, their benefits will be fine. We hear that. We hear people say, all these money in politics, they buy all the politicians. Well, they don't buy me, Josh. And people, again, go check my record. They don't owe me. They don't own me from the day I got into politics. You hear them talk about health care. What's going to happen with it? We've got a program that says, let's say you go out and you go ski and you break your hip. You got to have hip surgery. We know what the mean costs are for a specialist. If a specialist can come in, give you good quality at a lower price, we want to put money in their pocket. We want to make it worth their while to give you high quality at lower prices. That's the answer ultimately on healthcare. They want to know, are we going to be kept safe? And that gets done through our are terrorism task forces, which you should do a story on. These are the FBI and all local law enforcement who are the intelligence on the ground here in New Hampshire and throughout our country. They're the ones that have to disrupt these plots, which they always do, and they've done a fantastic job. We never hear about their successes. People want to know about that. They just want to believe that their children can get a job after they ring up all this debt in college. And what are we going to do about that? I mean, it's why the town halls are great.
And obviously, so many issues are out there, and there's so little time to talk about them and to come up with comprehensive plans and get people to hear you. One thing that seems to be missing in this debate, unless candidates themselves talk about it, which they don't have a lot of opportunity to do so, is the character of the person. How important is it that we talk more about the character of the individual who will hold the highest office?
Well, I think, look, none of us are saints, right? I mean, nobody that I've ever met that I know of. I met Mother Teresa once. I mean, she's clearly going to be a saint. But what I would say is we need somebody who's steady, experienced, and here's the other thing, pulls people together, doesn't demonize the other party, doesn't hate people that don't think the way they think. Part of the problem is now we can't fix problems in this country because all we're doing is sniping at one another. So throughout my career, whether it was negotiating with the Clinton administration to give us a balanced budget, or whether it's now working with Democrats to fix our highways, to fight the battle of human trafficking, to fix the public schools, or to deal with the issue of race, a serious issue of urban unrest and race, you have to bring people together. And if we don't do it, we're not going to fix problems. And Josh, people around the world look at America and they look at us fighting and sniping. What do you think they think? Think maybe America's lost its edge. So we got to have somebody that can keep their cool, bring people together, and solve problems without regard to politics. Politics just ruin everything if you don't get to the solutions of the most serious problems we have.
Sure, and talking about bringing people together, we have about a minute to go here, but a lot of people point, and I hate to keep bringing it back to Donald Trump, but he is the front runner, and his numbers are maintaining their continuity. But some of the things he says are considered to be very, very divisive. I mean, how do you?
You can't go to Washington.
What are you going to do?
You can't go in there and be angry or be divisive, because you won't get the other party to even listen to you, and you'll lose people in your own party. Look, I've been involved in building a team to fix Ohio. It was almost gone, and now we're doing great. The same thing happened in Washington. You've got to have somebody that has a vision, that's bold, that knows how to get this economy moving, that can keep us safe and can bring people together. Without that, America is going to keep lumbering along, and it isn't going to benefit us at all.
Well,
doesn't have to be that way, Josh. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too.
And we're going to have a great 2016.
Well.